Hi and welcome back to My Static Life. Now today I want to cover something that I've wanted to talk about for a long time now, and that is the cost of having a caravan, the cost of setting up a caravan and what it's going to cost to run it each year. But before we do, I just want to have a little word about Lee. Now you may have noticed he's not been on the channel as much this year, and that's because he's been busy setting up his own business and also working with his previous employee doing a lot of weekends. Now he has made the decision that he's going to start focusing purely on his business and therefore he's going to rent out his caravan. Now that sadly means that he's not going to be continuing with My Static Life, but I'll be continuing it on my own and hopefully Lee will come in at some point as a guest along with maybe a few other people along the way. So let's have a talk about the cost of owning and running a static caravan. Now, your static caravans, the prices range massively. You could get a caravan for as cheap as £2,000 or £3,000. Now, that'll be a caravan that's several years old, probably nearing the end of its lifetime. I mean, for a couple of grand, it's probably at least 20 years old, right? And then going up in price, depending where you are, you can be talking for a decent brand new caravan between 40 and say £60,000. But you can that number can just go up astronomically when you start looking at lodges. Lodges on our site, I've seen them. Well, we've seen them at second hand for like 60, 70 grand. But I was talking to one of the sales guys only the other day, and there was a site he worked on near London where there's lodges for sale for up to £500,000. So realistically, the price you pay initially can be massive, right? Then we've got to look at the running costs, and that is what today's video is really about. What does it actually cost to run a caravan? Now, we're going to have to work on a few averages here because depending what site you're on, depends what you actually pay. Like, for instance, on our site, we have to pay rates, we have to pay gas, we have to pay electric, then you've got insurance, and whereas the rates for on some sites they're built in with a pitch fee. So like there's a site near us called the New Inn, and their pitch fee it includes both the pitch fee and the rates. So you've got one less bill to worry about. But on ours you do have the rates. So let's first talk about pitch fee. And the reason we'll talk about pitch fee is pitch fees are the most expensive. The What are you doing, you silly dog? So let's talk about pitch fees, because pitch fee is going to be your number one price that you're going to be paying. It's the most expensive thing. But your pitch fee is only for basically your plot, your bit of concrete where your caravan sits. It's nothing more, right? And depending where you are in the country, depending the kind of site you're on, your pitch fee again can vary massively. Now, generally speaking, again, the lower tier, 2 grand, right? I have seen sites, particularly private sites, that maybe they might only have one or two sites that they might be around 2 grand. But then I've even seen some sites where the fees have been as high as £12,000. I have even heard a rumour that one site there's somebody who's paying over £17,000, which is an astronomical amount of money to pay, isn't it? So the average is probably about £5,500. Now I was paying £5,500, but we recently upgraded, and by doing so, we've actually come on to a cheaper pitch fee, which means that we're paying less. I'm going to do a separate video talking about how we've upgraded shortly. So after you paid your pitch fee, whether you're paying 2,000, 5,000, 12, or even 17,000, you've then got all the little costs that you might not necessarily think about when you first buy a caravan. Now, these are gas bottles, because you need to pay for gas. And again, depending where you're at, depends what you're paying. Now, because I'm on a Part Dean site, and Part Dean has got the power to basically buy a lot of gas at a time, we actually get our gas bottles relatively cheap. They're £85 a bottle. But I have heard that some places they might be looking at 120, 130, even 140 a gas bottle. And depending how much you use your van, depends how quickly you're going to go through it. Now, we tend to go through between 3 and 4 gas bottles a year. We do come to the site pretty much every weekend. The site is open. So you're open for roughly 42 to 43 weekends a year. And we come more or less every weekend. And then we might have a week or two where we're here for longer, or in summer we might do long weekends and have 3 or 4 days here. So you've got to take that into account. And also, I think you'll go through gas bottles varyingly depending how old your van is. Such as if you've got a really old van and you've only got single glazed windows, and I imagine the walls are a bit better quality and the floors are insulated now. So like if you've got an old van that ain't got any insulation, single glazing, you're going to go through a lot more gas bottles than say a modern van. So you've got to think about that. So if it's an old van, you might be using a lot more, or likewise if you're there a lot, you're going to be using a lot more. So, and then bottles are, like I said, between £85 plus. So you've got to think about that. The next thing you want to think about is your electric. Now, recently in the last year or two, just like household costs, electric bills have gone up. At one point, when we first got our Caravan, we were paying probably £34, 35, 36 maybe a quarter for his electric on his Caravan. This year, however, it's been more along the lines of about £53. So it's a bit of a jump. But again, we had that at home with his own electric bills. So you've got to think on that, you've got your bills at home, then you've got here. But another way of looking at it, if you're not at home using electric, you're at your Caravan using electric. So hopefully that should sort of like even out a little bit, maybe. The next thing we're going to, just going back to electric, that's on what a Caravan uses. A friend of mine who's got a lodge, his bill is about £100 a quarter. So obviously, when you're looking at the differences between a Caravan and a lodge, you've got to expect the bills to be bigger because it is bigger. So they're probably going to have slightly higher pitch fees because they're on a double plot. Likewise, you're going to find that the electric's probably a little bit more, and maybe even the gas because it's a bigger area to warm up, isn't it? So moving on to rates. Now, we get that once a year, and it varies from year to year. And I believe the reason it varies is because it depends how many owners are on site. So I believe that if there's more owners, the bills basically spread out more. And over the years, I've seen that as low as £200 and as high as £400. And what's covered in that is it's basically a bit like a council tax. So it covers your water and your sewage, but it also covers the bin collection and things like that. This year was £253. So it is at the slightly lower cost this year. Then we've got insurance. Now you legally have to have insurance. Regardless what part you're on, you will have to have it. Insurance, you want to shop around. Now this year we've actually got a year's free insurance because like I said, we've upgraded. So if you're in Part D, you normally get a year free with Gallagher's. But then after that, it's worth shopping around because I think Gallagher's, when you go to renew, it's about 250 to 300 quid. But you can get it as low as about 180 if you shop around. We used a company previously called Frank Pickles, and that were particularly cheap, so it's well worth taking a look at them. Going through that, I worked it out roughly what it costs us, right? So on the new pitch, if you look at it like that, so you've got £2,995 a year. Then £255 a year on gas bottles, £212 on electric, £210 roughly, for insurance. Then you've got your rates at 253. Now that works out at £3,925, right? Which is the equivalent of £75 a week. So it's going to cost you a minimum of £75 a week. But it doesn't really, right? It costs you more because most sites are not open for 12 months. If you work it out, if you're open from March till November, you're open for about 43 weeks, which means on our pitch fee, it's costing me £90 a week to run the caravan, and that's pitch fees and all the bills. So £90 a week. However, if you're on a higher pitch fee, say you're on what is probably the national average of about £5,500, right? That is £125 a week over the course of the year, or on actual weeks that it can be open, it's costing you £175 a week. So obviously these costs, they do really stack up when you look at how much time it's open and what you've got to pay for. But, you know, for me, £90 a week in order that I've got somewhere to go every single weekend with my family, meet my friends, have a few drinks, have lots of laughs. Is it worth it for me? Absolutely. I love it. Right. So I hope that sort of cleared things up for those of you that are thinking about buying a caravan, but you don't know what the costs are going to be. So only use this as a guide, bear in mind. Make sure you check with any site that you're looking at buying a caravan with what their exact numbers are. Find out exactly what they are charged. You need to be charged for. Find out if you are paying electric. Some of them might include it. Doubtful. Find out if you're paying for gas. Some of them might include it. Doubtful. I think both of them you'll have to pay separately. I think the only one that might be that you can get away with is the rates one. Sometimes the water and the rates is in with your pitch fee, which to be fair, you're saving yourself £200 or £300 a year then if it is. So that's all from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.